New York City gets a new chancellor to grapple with a school system facing major challenges. What's the solution? The Point starts right now. Kamar Samuels has been in the New York City school system for over 20 years. He started as an elementary school teacher in the Bronx and worked his way up to principal, superintendent, and he is now the big boss. So my first question to you is this. You've been in the system for a long time. What grade would you give the system right now?
Oh, wow, what grade? I think I would give the system maybe a C, because we've started to work on some really good practices, and we need to make sure those are deepened, and we need to make sure that they take hold throughout the system, and then we need to do some more things to make sure that we move in the right direction.
So what things would you like to change?
Yeah, some of the biggest things that I'd like to change is how we actually approach parents. In all of my jobs.
Really good idea.
In all of my jobs across the system, the lead thing that I did was listen to parents. And I want to take that into this role. One of the things is that parents and families want to know that they're part of the decision-making process in schools. And when I was in Brooklyn, we did that. And it wasn't just, do they like Kamar or don't they like Kamar? It was more, what is the big problem that we're going to solve? What are some of Kamar's ideas to do that? And how do we together make those ideas better?
So what are some of Kamar's ideas to make things better?
Well, first of all, again, you know, we have an enrollment problem in our city. Every day I talk to families who, first of all, they are having more children and they can't afford to stay in school, in our schools and in our system. What they tell me is that we need a quality school in every single neighborhood. And so the first thing I want to do is to ensure that I'm trying and working my hardest to make sure that every single school in neighborhoods are really, really
But
good.
we both know that there are neighborhoods that don't have quality schools, and there are neighborhoods that have great schools. So how do you bridge that gap between neighborhoods that think they've died and went to heaven because they've got a great school, and neighborhoods that say, how do I get out of here?
Yeah, so the first thing we have to do is make sure that every student is on track in reading. That's why we exist, and right now we don't necessarily have that in every single neighborhood. We started last year with New York City Reads, and I think we made tremendous progress, went up significantly in literacy, and so we need to double down on that and then start thinking about math, because if we don't do math well, if our students are not if they're not literate and if they're not really performing well, they're not going to be ready for the jobs that exist, much less the jobs that don't. We don't even know the jobs where.
But you started in math.
Yes.
You started doing numbers. So how would you fix the math system?
Yeah, I think we have some tweaks that we need to do there. What we did with literacy was super successful. I want to tell you a little bit about why. One, we started from the bottom up. We started from elementary school up.
Right.
For math, we started from the top down. And
that doesn't sound like a good idea.
So when you're talking about whether kids can have a good conceptual understanding of math, I think it's really, really important for you to start with our teachers that need the most content expertise. And so another thing so we should start with elementary school, or we should really work with our elementary schools. Another thing is that we should think about this idea of, I do this all the time. I'm working with parents. And I said, yeah, we need to make sure kids are making sense of the math. We need to make sure they understand the conceptual understanding. And they look back at me and say, my kid is in 4th grade and doesn't know the times tables, Kamar. And sometimes we don't listen to that feedback. Knowing your timetables is very, very important in math. When you get to algebra, you won't be able to factor. You can't factor on your fingers.
So why don't they know the times tables?
So because we oftentimes don't focus on that, because we think that the best way to really teach math right now is to work on conceptual understanding. That is important, but it's also important for kids to have automaticity. We think of it as like an old thing, but we absolutely need to incorporate it so that our parents can believe in what we do again.
So that's one of your first changes. You're going to teach people the times tables?
Well, I'm going to make sure kids have individual time in class to work on automaticity and also individual time to work through problems.
You also have a problem with chronic absenteeism. I wonder how you're going to deal with that.
Yeah, so across our system, no matter the demographics, students are coming to school fewer days now than they did prior to the pandemic. And it's a huge problem because if you're not in school, we can't actually do the work that we need to do. And so we've been working with our community schools, with our Every Family is Known, to really make sure that we're thinking about even the days. Even there are some days in the calendar that you have one day, you're coming in school for like one day a week, and then you didn't come the next week because we're surrounded by holidays, right? And so one of the things that we need to do is when we have those problematic days, we need to make sure that school is really engaging and engaging every day. One of the things that I really want to make sure is that students that our work is rigorous, our work is engaging. If our work is not rigorous, our work is not engaging, students will not be excited to come to school. When you think about, who got this right? The video game people, right? They make sure kids are working in their zone, what we call the zone of proximal development, right? So they want to do the next thing, they want to continue, and schools should have the same approach.
How does school do that?
Well, you have to make sure you see the child and know exactly what they need. So we call that, loosely differentiation, but we also say we have to put systems and structures. A lot of schools around the city have what they call what I need periods, which is actually what that child exactly need and not the entire whole class instruction.
Don't you have to engage the parents if you're worried about absenteeism?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I said first, right? We have to get, because especially in our lower grades, who decides whether the kid comes to school, right? It's the parent, right? And so when we're thinking about pre-K and 3K, certainly our parents need to make sure that our kids are coming to school. But we also, during the pandemic, had a cultural shift. And that cultural shift is once someone feels like they may not be up to par, they might have a fever, they're more likely to stay home now than before. Also, because our system has changed. Our society has changed. Parents are now working from home, so it's more likely that a parent might say, you know what, don't go to school today. And I do have some thoughts around that long term, but for now, really, we have to make sure we're working directly with parents and directly with students, that school is an engaging place, you're safe in our schools, and we're open for business and you should come.
What's your long-term plan?
Yeah, so the long-term plan is to just develop over time high scores in literacy. We really want to make sure that all of our kids are learning. It doesn't.
An age-old problem.
Age-old problem is absolutely right. An age-old problem for our most marginalized students as well. And so if we're going to be serious about that, we need to double down on the things that we started doing last year.
So you talked about, improving math scores. I have to ask you because apparently the Department of Education is investigating Flushing High School, where the teachers there were told that they have to pass math students even if they're failing. I know there's an investigation. I wonder how you feel about that, the pressure that's being brought to bear on these teachers in math to pass kids, whether they're proficient or not.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to speak about a specific investigation, but I will say that I want schools to be rigorous. That means that you are looking at the child in front of you and you're making sure that you're doing whatever that needs to be done early to make sure that child learns. But teachers need to be inspired to do that. One of the things that I think superintendents need to do is to bring back the passion that they have for this work and why they do it, so that they can then in turn inspire principals and then principals inspire teachers, because it shouldn't be that you're getting this top-down pressure that may or may not make you do different things. It's really about how do I get the passion I have for my subject and how serious I am about my subject and how much I love my subject to make sure that that translates to our students.
So you gave the school system a C. You want to fix the reading program, you want to fix the math program. What else do you want to do?
Yeah, so I believe schools should be safe, rigorous, and truly integrated. If schools are not truly integrated, then throughout our system, we won't really enjoy the greatness that New York City has to offer. So there are several ways, and we're going to really talk a lot more about that in the upcoming months. But when we look at all of our systems, when we look at all of our structures, when we need to make changes, we should use a lens for creating more diverse schools when we do that. And I believe, some don't, but I believe that you can really keep schools a lot more rigorous when you have integrated schools.
So we're talking racially integrated, economically integrated, what?
Socioeconomically, for sure, racially integrated, all of those things. Obviously, we can't mandate racial integration. That's like Supreme Court laws that prevent us to do that. Right. So when you look at schools around our city, right now we're in an enrollment crisis, right? And so some schools are under-enrolled, some schools are robustly enrolled and have.
You're going to close schools?
Nice. No, I wouldn't say I'm going to close schools yet, but I'm going to say that we're going to look at structural moves, which includes mergers and all of that, and see what the opportunities are, not just to create diverse schools, but also to meet our class size mandate, what people think of as a mandate, which I think of more as an opportunity for teachers to be able to meet every student where they are. Like so that the things that may or may not have happened that you're talking about in Flushing, like that's about making sure that teachers have the tools and resources to meet every single child.
Well, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But up next, the dangers of human trafficking in our area. January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. I'm joined by Neela Mukherjee Lockel, head of a nonprofit network that works with vulnerable communities and victims of sex trafficking. So I guess the first question to ask you is this: how big a problem is sex trafficking in the metropolitan New York area?
I would say it is a substantial problem. Our work in this space focuses on Long Island and Nassau and Suffolk counties. This is a nationwide issue, but shockingly, Long Island ranks about 13th in the country.
What?
For rates of human trafficking.
Why?
And Long Island is about 3rd in the state. We rank 3rd in the state for this issue.
But why?
There's a lot of different reasons. Long Island, because of the different sort of transportation routes. But I also have to say that it is an issue that is increasing in prevalence across suburbia. I think we've often thought about it as an urban issue, but really what's happening now, because of the internet and because of technology and because of our use of social media, the access to potential victims is much greater. And so our work focuses on minor victims of human trafficking, so younger people. And what we're finding is that younger people are, as it is, they're in a stage of development, and so they are more susceptible. But the access to them has increased via social media and various different gaming platforms where they're communicating with other people.
Well, you know, we often think of sex trafficking as either some gang is going to, you know, abduct you. It's like stranger abduction. Or like people groom you. We don't really think of social media as the way that people get lured into sex trafficking. Has that changed because of social media, or is it still, are people still being abducted and, you know, imprisoned into sexual trafficking?
I would say that we often sensationalize cases where people are being abducted and things like that, and those things can certainly happen, but the thing that is happening in a more insidious type of way and is far more common is that young people are being groomed online by people that they're meeting.
Are there people they know or strangers?
So sometimes there's strangers who become people that they know, right? So somebody might be online, somebody might start chatting with them, they develop a relationship online over a period of time, whether that's weeks or months, and at some point they can meet, and at some point the victim or the young person's reliance or dependence on this person has grown to the place where they think that this person is the one who understands them, who can save them. So when things are difficult at home or when things are difficult at school.
My mother doesn't understand me.
My mother doesn't understand me, but I understand you. How about we go to Starbucks and I'll grab you a drink and we'll talk.
But how do they develop the trust?
You know, it is constant validation of whatever the young person is saying. Sometimes it's buying them things. It's really trying to develop the relationship with them to say, I'm your boyfriend, right? They might develop that sort of a relationship, and then it can turn into, and what we've seen it turn into is, if you love me, you will do this. And again, by this point, the young person is dependent on them. And of course, not always, but often, drugs and substances become a part of the equation as well.
Are you saying that they use drugs and substances to control them?
Absolutely. Not always, like I said, but I would say it's certainly a very common issue as well.
So how does the sex trafficker pick a victim, pick a person that they want to develop as somebody they could use in sex trafficking?
Well, I think that there's a wide range of ways that it happens, right? One is it can be somebody is casting a wide net, reaching out, seeing who responds, who engages with them, right? So if you're teen, and to be fair, this happens to males and to females, they might reach out, and if they say, hey, how's it going? And then the young person responds back, they have a potential prospect.
If you're caught up in a sex trafficking situation, how does this young, vulnerable person get out of it?
Ideally, what happens is people are aware, people are seeing signs, people are calling it out, people are bringing attention to it. One of the things that we spend a lot of time doing, in addition to providing services and mentoring, is also providing community education. So it's teaching hotels, teaching restaurants, teaching people in transportation signs and red flags to look for.
So if you see a younger person walking in with an older person, it's a warning sign.
Yeah, there's different things to look for, right? Is somebody saying, leave your phone here when you go to the bathroom, right? Those kinds of things. If somebody in a hotel situation, if they're seeing a lot of traffic in and out of a room, right? If they're seeing a young person in the room, they're being asked to change the sheets frequently. So there's a lot of different things that various different people in different sort of situations or settings can be looking for.
How does that young person get help to get out of this situation?
Well, there's a variety of different ways, right? So if their parents or their schools or their caregivers or their guardians can do some outreach, get some help. Our program is called the Safe Harbor Program, and this is based on a law that was enacted in 2008, which basically protects young people who are in this situation from being charged as a criminal and being seen as a victim, so that they can have access to services. And so we get referrals for young people all the time, and sometimes they come in for services, and sometimes we have to just continue to try to do the outreach and stay consistent and work with them until they build enough trust with us to be able to bring them in.
So is it a question of educating their parents as well?
Absolutely. Our community education reaches out to schools, community groups, businesses, all different kinds of settings, and it is about teaching awareness to you based on wherever you're at, wherever you may be interacting young people.
And looking for the signs.
Looking for the signs.
Okay, we're gonna have to leave it right there for now, but we will be right back. Thank you for joining me. So how many fingers am I holding up? I'm asking the question because, hey, it matters if you want to get behind the wheel of a car. Should there be tests for that? New Yorkers have a lot to say about who should be allowed to drive, and they're weighing in on your point. Do you think that you should have to take a vision test to renew your driver's license?
Yeah, I think that's pretty important.
Absolutely. If you can't see where you're going, it's a danger to you and the people around you.
I think you should have to have a current prescription, meaning within the past year or so.
Yes, and especially if you're a senior citizen.
I think at a certain age you should.
Because even though you know the rules of the road, you need to see what's in front of you, behind you, to the side of you.
I know people who tell me they don't see well at night and they are still driving, so I think they are dangerous.
Would it be a good idea to have to retake your driver test every few years?
Yeah, I would say so. As far as doing it often, I'm not sure that's necessary.
I think mechanically, it's kind of like riding a bike. You know, you don't forget how to drive.
I don't think it could hurt. People get sloppy.
Neuroplasticity in the minds is ever changing, and it's important to know where people are at any given point in time.
Probably in your later years, probably past 50, you know, and I'm past 50.
In the UK, I think your driving license lasts for 20 or 30 years, but there's an expectation in the UK that as you get older, you need to retake it.
Is there an age that's too old to drive?
No, I think people age differently.
Someone could look at the data, and maybe there should be a top age, yeah.
I don't think that there's a top age. I just think that, like, a person knows when they can and what they can and what they can't do.
As a senior citizen, I don't feel like I'm ready to stop driving. And I know there are very good drivers who are way older than me, and I feel comfortable riding in their car.
Well, I'm going to be biased about that because I'm 79 years old and I'm still driving.
There are people who are doing great physical things in their 70s, 80s, 90s. But I think the testing, maybe you make tests biannual, every year, whatever, to assure that time and age has not overtaken them. Because a lot of times the mind is great and everything, but the body betrays.
How old is too old to drive a car?
Probably like 85.
I think 90 should be the cutoff period.
Why 90?
Why 90? Because you're getting close to 100.
I don't think it's how old is to drive, or is if you're capable or not.
I think when you're mentally impaired and you can't see is too old.
With modern science and medicine, I think that's an impossible question right now.
How old is too old to drive?
90 years old.
90? I'm going to bet that when you turn 90, you're still going to be driving.
I hope so if they let me.